The most important question that must be answered before embarking on your homestead journey is, how are you going to afford it? How are you going to make it work financially? A common myth that's out there is that homesteading is really expensive and that you need hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars to homestead. And that's not true.
No, it's not true. I mean, you can spend as much money as you want. You can throw money at anything.
Yeah.
But honestly, none of us would be here if it cost that much money.
Yeah.
Look at the original pioneers. What did they do? They brought everything that they had and they used what they had and they made do. That is how you be a homesteader.
That's right. It required resourcefulness and grit, and it does require some type of cash flow, some type of funds to be able to support it and to be able to grow it. And during our homestead journey, we've learned that, and throughout our journey, we have learned that there are basically 7 keys that we have learned that you can apply to help you to afford your homestead journey. And the first key is simply make the most of what you have.
Yeah.
Basically, when we started our homestead, we started where we were in the city limits, just growing what we could and setting up raised beds just right outside of our home, our small little property, learning to grow.
And ripped out all of our, plants that didn't produce anything. We ripped all those out and planted food so we could grow food for ourselves right there.
And even if you don't have an area outside to grow in, start with growing something in your kitchen window. When we were starting our homestead, when we were starting seeds, we started our seeds right in the living room window. Yeah. That's what we had. That's what you had to do. And also, if you can also go support other farms, volunteer at those farms that give you a hands-on experience homesteading. Maybe you're not homesteading exactly where you live, but you can begin developing your skills as a homesteader by volunteering at different places.
And learning that education as you go is so important because, like we've said before, people over romanticize moving to a piece of property and start homesteading. If you don't have any skills on how to do that, then it is so much harder, and you are going to get discouraged so much quicker if you don't at least have some kind of skill set to go off of. And so volunteering at a farm is a wonderful way to get some of those skills under your belt.
And the next point is land. And land can be an obstacle for many people because purchasing land, it can be really expensive nowadays, and for most people that hinders them from even embarking on the homestead journey. And there's a number of things that you can do. You can lease land. Curtis Stone, urban farmer from Canada, one of the things that he does is he leases different plots to grow food on.
In the city.
Some leases are a cash arrangement, others are the use of the land in return for getting vegetables and produce that is grown on that land. And here on our homestead, we're homesteading on property that is family property.
Yeah, it's my mom and dad's property. So they have allowed us to come and farm on their land because nobody else was down here.
Yeah, and it's been a huge blessing for us to be able to do so. And it's provided us with a land that hasn't been used, and while we're here, we're working on improving the land, taking land that wasn't growing really anything for anybody.
Poison ivy.
And now making it where it produces food for us and so many other families, and it's pretty neat to think about that. And that may be an entryway for some of you. Talk to family members and friends that have land, and maybe you could use their land and work out some type of arrangement where you can begin producing food on that land.
But also, like we said before, start where you are. Out in Pasadena, California, there's the urban homestead. They're on 1/10 of an acre, but they maximize their space. They even have pygmy goats and I think chickens. 1/10 of an acre producing thousands of pounds of food every single year just from 1/10 of an acre. So there is so much more that you can do than you realize. You just have to just change the thought process of a farm being this big expansive land.
That's
you don't need acres and acres of land to farm, to homestead on.
Exactly right. And then once you do find a land, if that's the direction you're going, another thing that people have to figure out is housing. Where are you going to live at on the property if you find a property to homestead on? And you may want to explore alternative housing. We live here in a yurt, 700 square foot yurt, us together with our 3 kids.
Yeah.
Other people have lived in tents. We know people who lived in tents. We've known people who've lived in RVs and campers.
At the schoolie, they converted a bus and have lived in there for a few years. Tiny homes. You just have to think, just for one thing, homesteaders are not normal people. So you have to think outside of the normal box.
We are abnormal weirdos.
That's okay. I'll go for being unique and being abnormal anytime.
And you can also look at properties that have been abandoned, that they need to be fixed up, fixer-uppers, that maybe they have foreclosed, and you can fix up those properties and turn them into a homestead. So just look at options that are different than your so-called classifieds, where you see, oh, that's just like the piece of my dream land, but it's just so expensive, and it hinders you from being able to do anything. And as we have gone on our journey, we did what we could to do the best with what we had in the city. Then when we got to the point where we did want to expand and do more homesteading, we moved out onto this land that is family land. And then we were, because the budget was super tight and almost non-existent, we were able to scrape together and get a yurt as alternative living. And then another thing that we did along the way was decrease our expenses, and we continued to do that. And one of the things that we had to do, well, we had to do a bunch of things with decreasing our expenses. One, we cut cable, we cut Netflix,
and we weren't extravagant people to begin with. So this is just cutting it down to the bare bones to keep your power on, to keep warm, make sure you have food, just the bare necessities. Yeah, we were cutting out all those things, cutting out eating out. Oh yeah. We shared a cell phone. Yeah. And we were using one vehicle. And after years of only having one vehicle, we were finally able to scrape together a little bit of money to get a van. Yeah, and regretfully it only lasted us, what, 2 years maybe? Maybe a little over 2 years. And then it went kaput, and I still remember today seeing it getting towed off, and it's like, oh man, another one's not in our budget anytime soon. There it goes. But thankfully, here recently, we were able to upgrade and get an even nicer van, and it's been such a blessing to have a second vehicle, a nice van for our family. It's so pretty much your car. I got the rugged truck man. I'll take my van. I'm good. Yeah, and there's some other things you can do is barter and trade, and just figure out DIY. Figure out how you can do things yourself when you don't have a budget to pay people to do things. You just got to figure it out. You just got to do it. Or keep an eye out on Craigslist and Marketplace, and for the things that you need, and see if you can find them at the lowest possible price. That's another, just being on top of that. And it can take a lot of time, but it can get you where you want to go to. And that's how we got our yurt, is on Craigslist, actually. And other things that we do are thrift stores. And one of the mottos from the Duggars that I really liked is buy used and save the difference. Yes. So that's been one of the things that we've had to do along the way. And here recently we went to Kids Consignment that we typically go to every year, where they have a number of people go there. It's like the parking lot is just jam-packed with people there, and long lines of people there getting these used items. It's mostly focused around kids and children's items. Where are we going first? Toy. That's always the first answer. That was my first answer when I was a kid too. Josiah? What? Look at that. Lego book. Oh, and it comes with Lego. Yeah. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Hey guys, look here. I found something that I used to like to get when I was a kid. Comic books. We got Avengers in here, and Black Panther, Justice League.
Alright, they have each of the areas marked out. They have cranes behind us. They have Legos over there. They have animal figures over here. And they have action figures over here. Where are we going next? Alright. Look, we're here. See Captain America? He got his shield too.
I went back to America.
You hang on to him? Action figures is one of my favorites too. Again, Micah, what is that? You got a shield? Are you riding your horse? Don't hurt that horse.
What do I have here? Some weary travelers.
Yep, tap down. What's what happens to men when we do this?
And small children,
I'm one of those men, like, I'm not a good shopper. What do you like most about these kind of consignments?
Well, sometimes you can get really good deals. So and I don't know, I like thrift shopping and stuff like that, so you never know what you're going to find.
You look excited?
51 cents is your change, buddy. Get your money back. Got it?
Yep, and now you can get your toys. You gonna get them?
You give me your receipt so they know that you paid for it, okay?
Go ahead and get the receipt and your toys.
Go.
Good job. And the kids were super excited about going to the consignment, and they had their money saved up and were super pumped about picking out some toys.
And they find toys that are, you know, normally really expensive, and they get a really good deal on them. So we're teaching them young how to get really good deals on things. So it's a life lesson. It's a life lesson too. It's not just, you know, saving money. You're just teaching them how to be frugal with their money in the future.
And another thing that goes along with decreasing your expenses is learning to make sacrifices. There's a lot of sacrifices that must be made when you're cutting out all these different things, some of these luxuries that you're used to. So you're gonna have to work through some of that stuff. Maybe you can't go out and buy those new clothes that you want. Maybe you can't go out to the fine restaurant or something that you may be used to. You have to keep in mind the bigger goal of what you're striving for and be willing to make those necessary sacrifices.
And there's a ton of sacrifices and certain things that you just take for granted that you're able to go do. Like, you know, go buy a pair of shoes, go do, you know, this or that. I think I went like 5 years without buying shoes for myself when I really needed some because it just wasn't in the budget. And when it's not in the budget, it's just not in the budget.
Yeah.
So those are just the type of sacrifices that you may not have to make, but we had to make.
And another sacrifice that we had to make was with our gas and the trips of leaving the homestead. We couldn't afford to make unnecessary trips off the homestead. So with our gas, we had to make sure that when we were out, we maximized that time, that we'd do our work, our errands, all that in the same time, because that was all we could afford. We couldn't afford unnecessary trips off the homestead.
Yeah. And another thing you need to think about is you're not going to be able to move from the city or wherever you're at, move onto a piece of property and automatically start making money from that property if it's not set up already as a farm or some kind of business that's established.
Yeah, and that relates to what I just said about taking trips off the homestead. You're probably, most likely, most of you are going to have some type of off the homestead employment job to be able to fund your homestead, at least in the beginning. And I had to do that for a number of years. I worked off the homestead and then came back and did work on the homestead. It was like on, off, and it can be draining, but it is one of those things that it has to. You have to have some type of income, some type of cash flow to fund what you're doing on the homestead. And then as you're doing that, you can also begin to start generating income from the things that are on the homestead. Maybe a market garden, it may be selling soaps, it may be eggs, it may be meat birds. You have to figure that out. Learn the skill involved to help you to be able to generate some type of income, because if not, it's just an expensive hobby that you're just going to be paying for. But eventually you want your homestead to be generating produce, income, so that way you can be more sustainable as a homestead.
Yeah, and I mean there's tons of opportunities out there and things that you can do on your homestead. People raise, chickens and sell them as chicks. I mean, there's just an endless number of things that you can do to make your homestead profitable, but you have to figure out what works for you, because not everything that you want to do or you think you want to do is actually what you want to do, and it may not produce the amount of money that you want it to. So you're going to have to experiment with some stuff too.
And you're also going to have to come to terms and figure out, is your homestead going to be a hobby that you fund through whatever type of work you do, or is it eventually going to be some type of profitable, sustainable business that it produces income for you and your family?
Yeah.
And that brings me to the next thing, and this is, you're going to have to work hard. It's another key for making it work financially on your homestead. You're going to have to be willing to put in extra hours, work probably harder than you ever had, and it's just part of what it takes to make that transition. Unless you're coming to the homestead and you already have this big bag of money and you just, we'll just pay for whatever. Most people, that's not the case.
Because I remember last summer when you were terracing the land out there for our garden beds, and someone said, just come and bulldoze it and then bring in loads of composted topsoil and do that, and it would be much cheaper. And the thing of it is if you don't know where someone is financially, it may be cheap for that person because in their mind they have it all figured out. But if the person, if you don't have it, then you can't do it. So you got to figure it out as you go. And there's just so much more that goes into a homestead than what people think, and figuring things out, and a market garden and all.
And the next thing is start small and grow from there. So many homesteaders, when they start that journey of homesteading and they get on their property, and then there's so many different things that they're excited in. They want to do bees, they want to do goats, they want to do chickens, they want to do ducks, they want to do gardens, they want to do this, they want to grow wheat, they want to do corn, they want to grow it all and do it all. And then with that, they spread themselves too thin and they don't do any of it well. And they just make money pits here, money pits there, money pits, and they're just not, and energy pits as well.
Yeah.
And it can end up being where they are failing financially at the same time. And
that's not a good place to be.
I had to learn part of that the hard way. Thankfully, I didn't go too far down in that. But when I started out in the homestead, I wanted to do pasture poultry. I wanted to have a garden, and I wanted to do goats as well. And I began to see that, man, and with working off the homestead, it was super challenging, and I was super exhausted. And add to that, splitting wood and all the other things that come along with homesteading, I was just exhausted. And thankfully, I came into contact with Curtis Stone and began learning from him, and really began to put my focus more towards the market garden and have a central focus. And I encourage you to have a central focus, and then as you start to really narrow in and refine what you're doing, then you can begin adding other areas and begin improving your homestead in different capacities. And that's another thing, is as you're adding these different things on, think about these expenses now that as you're building and you're growing your infrastructure and your different things like your greenhouses, your fences. Look at them as investments into your homestead.
And investing in these types of things like fences for your homestead, it does set you up better for down the road in the future to make your homestead more profitable.
Yeah, all these different tools, like for me, I didn't have the money for all the right tools at first, and just grunting it out and just doing the best I could, like tearing out beds and trying to mix your soil without anything, was just, you're just grunting it out. But then gradually you begin to get a tool here, a tool there, a tool here, a tool there, and it begins to make you more efficient, which helps you to start making a little bit more money here, a little bit more money there, a little bit more, and start doing things better and start living the kind of life that you want to live.
These are things that we have had to go through to afford our homestead.
And we want to hear from you. Are any of you homesteaders, and have you had to face some of these types of challenges? Let us know in the comments section below. Also, we want to pick a winner. We want to pick one of you to give away some Baker Creek seeds to. So if you are in need of some seeds on your homestead journey, let us know in the comment section below, and we're going to pick a winner to receive some of these seeds.
Yeah, please tell us like why you need them, and just a little bit about yourself, because we really want to give these to people that really need them.
So that's it for now. Be strong, grow on, and live life without excuses. See you next time.
Bye guys.